Prologue. By the time they found the first camera, Mara had already learned how to perform fear. Terror looked better, she'd discovered, when you softened it at the edges. No wild eyes, no shaking hands. Viewers didn't like that. It made them feel complicit. What they wanted was something tidier. A confession in good lighting. A joke at her own expense. A nervous laugh to tell them it was all under control. So when the police officer knelt down in her hallway and prized the tiny black disc from under the radiator cover, she didn't scream. She didn't faint. She didn't even drop the mug she was holding, though the tea inside had long gone cold. "Another one," he said, holding it up between finger and thumb. "Same model." The detective Hughes, the one with the tired eyes and the neat ponytail, made a note in her book. "That makes 4, she said. "Bathroom vent, bedroom socket, living room skirting, and now here." Mara stared at the thing. No bigger than a shirt button. No blinking red light, no whirring, no obvious malice. Just a small matte circle that had been quietly eating her life. "How long?" she asked. Her voice surprised her. It sounded like it did on live streams, clear, a fraction higher than in her own head. "Hard to say," Hughes replied. "Weeks? Months maybe." She glanced around the flat, at the ring light in the corner, at the camera on its tripod, and at the laptop on the coffee table. "He didn't have to work very hard to see you. You were already doing most of the job for him." Mara managed a brittle smile. "Always happy to create engaging content," she said. Neither of the officers laughed. Outside, beyond the thin walls of the North London terrace, the city hummed its indifferent song. Buses sighed along the main road. Someone argued on a balcony 2 floors down. A siren wailed faintly and then was gone. Inside, her own footage played silently on the TV, a looping gallery of stills pulled from the USB he'd sent. Her face at different angles and in different lights. Laughing, sleeping, frowning at a bill, brushing her teeth. The living room curtains were drawn, but the faces glowed in the dimness, a private cinema of unwilling reflections. Hughes followed her gaze. "We can turn that off," she said. "You don't have to look at it." "Yes, I do," Mara said. "If I don't, it'll just play in my head anyway. Might as well use the better resolution." She set the mug down carefully and crossed to the TV. Up close, the screenshots blurred into pixels. She could see the compression artifacts on the edges of her hair, and the ghosting around her hands. Even his theft wasn't in full HD. "You know, he's not the first one to do this," Hughes said, not unkindly. "Maybe not to you, but to people like you. We've had a few cases the last couple of years. Same pattern. Same escalation. Same insistence that the victim is somehow participating." "Because we post," Mara said. "Because we share." She lifted her hands to make the quotation marks, then let them drop. "Because we put ourselves out there, right? So what did we expect?" "That's not what I said," Hughes replied. "And it's not what the law says. Stalking is about his choices, not your job. You're not on trial here." "Feels like I am," Mara said. "Every time I open my phone." "You can put the phone down," Hughes said. Mara didn't tell her she slept with it under her pillow. That sometimes, at 3 in the morning between notification bursts, she'd open the app just to see other people's lives continuing as if nothing was wrong. Babies. Dogs. Breakfasts. Unboxings. Free content. Free access. Free. On the TV, the stills flicked to a frame she hadn't noticed before. Her parents' house. Devon. Shot from the end of the cul-de-sac, Her childhood bedroom window was a small square of yellow in the dusk. Her stomach lurched. "How many have you got?" she asked quietly. "Of there." Hughes didn't answer immediately. When she did, her voice was very even. "A few," she said. "Enough to establish a pattern. Not enough to suggest he's been inside. We'll confirm that, but for now it looks like he stayed on the street." "How comforting," Mara said. "My parents will be thrilled." "We'll talk to them," Hughes said. "When you're ready." Mara nodded, though the thought of that conversation made her dizzy. Her mum, eyes bright with practical worry. Her dad oscillating between fury and useless jokes. Both of them were looking at her like she was 12 again, with scraped knees and unexplained tears. "This isn't your fault," Hughes said. It sounded like a line she'd delivered before, many times to many people. Mara thought of every video she'd ever filmed about being real, about showing up authentically, about letting people in. Thought of the DMs she'd answered at 2 a.m., heart emojis and "I see you" typed with genuine care. Thought of the first time a stranger had stopped her in the street and said, "You feel like my best friend." "Isn't it?" she asked softly. Hugh's gaze was steady. "No," she said. "He chose this. He crossed lines you never agreed to. That's on him." Mara watched her own face on the screen, static and unblinking. Somewhere, not so long ago, a notification had pinged at the top of that image. A message from an account called Ever Watching. The first one she hadn't laughed off. "Don't forget to lock the balcony door tonight, X." Back then, it had felt like the start of something. Now, standing in a room full of ghosts and hardware, she understood it had been the middle. The dark web of his attention had already wrapped itself around her by then. The cameras were already in the walls. "This is the bit they won't see," she said, half to Hughes, half to the flickering copies of herself. "The boring bit. The police and the paperwork, and the dust under the radiator. They'll only see the clips. The courtroom sketches. The headlines." "You can't control what they see," Hughes said. "You can only control what you give them." That, Mara thought, had been the problem all along. She turned away from the TV, picked up her phone, unlocked it. For a second, muscle memory took over, thumb drifting towards the pink-orange camera icon, brain queuing up the opening line. "Hey loves. So, bit of a weird one." She stopped. The camera app hung there, waiting. All it would take was one tap, and she could frame this moment into content. Freeze it. Hashtag it. Turn it into something that could be watched, liked, and shared. Instead, she scrolled to a blank note and typed 4 words. It started like this. Later, she would change them. Add context. Move the beginning back or forward to the first DM, or the first meet and greet, or the first time she'd been more worried about numbers than names. For now, they were enough. Outside, a siren wailed again, louder this time. Somewhere in the city, a lens turned. A red light blinked on. Inside, surrounded by stolen images of herself, Mara Quinn began very quietly to write her own. Chapter 1: The Livestream. Rain smeared neon across the windows of Mara's flat like someone had dragged wet fingers through the city lights, blurring them into streaks of pink and blue. London hummed outside, taxis hissing along glistening roads, laughter rising from the pub on the corner, and the distant wail of a siren that never quite grew louder. Inside, beneath the white circle of her ring light, everything looked perfect. Okay, babes, she murmured, checking the framing on her DSLR one last time. The camera showed the curated version of her living room. A soft gray sofa, velvet cushions in muted jewel tones, a strategically placed stack of art books she had never finished, and fairy lights looping across the shelves. Out of frame, a pile of laundry sulked in the corner, and an unopened electricity bill glared from the coffee table. She tucked a strand of hair behind her ear, smoothed her black silk blouse, and rolled her shoulders until they clicked. Let's do this. The streaming software on her laptop counted down. 3, 2, 1. Hi, loves. Her voice lifted automatically, sliding into the familiar cadence her followers knew. It has been a week, let me tell you. Hearts and comments flooded the chat box almost immediately. OMG, she's live. Mara or hair. We missed you, Queen. She smiled, the gesture practiced but not entirely fake. The warmth that spread through her chest whenever the viewer count climbed was real enough. 16,000. 19. 22. The number ticked upwards like a pulse. Okay, I see you, she laughed. Everyone's very excited tonight. It's just me, in my sad little North London flat, on a Friday, so thank you for making it less tragic. Comments scrolled so fast they became a blur, but her brain had learned to pluck out certain phrases, product names, inside jokes, and mentions of her dog, currently at her ex's flat in Hackney, long story she would never share on stream. She perched on the edge of the sofa, angling herself so the light hit the right side of her face, the one without the faint childhood scar near her temple. How is everyone? She asked. Rate your week out of 10. I want honesty. No toxic positivity in this house. The chat exploded with numbers and brief confessions, breakups, exams, job interviews, and bad skin days. She read a few aloud, offering quick, empathetic comments, the digital equivalent of patting a stranger's hand. This was the part she liked, the illusion of connection, the sense that her living room extended outwards into thousands of smaller, lonelier spaces. Then she saw it. Among the swarm of usernames and emojis, one handle snagged her gaze like a hook. Ever watching? The name pulsed once, then vanished as new comments shoved it up the feed. Mara's mouth went dry. For a moment the flat seemed too quiet behind the muffled buzz from outside, the ring light too bright and the air too still. Don't react. She had blocked that handle 2 days ago. She was sure of it. Her thumb hovered over the trackpad while she kept talking, words spilling out on autopilot. And honestly, if your boss is still emailing you after 6 p.m., they are the villain in your story, not you, she said, forcing a laugh. We need boundaries. The chat roared in agreement. The username did not reappear. Maybe it was a different ever watching, she told herself. Common enough, in a deeply weird way. People repeated handles all the time with underscores and numbers when they ran out of ideas. She had 2 separate Mariquin Stan accounts that argued with each other in her comments sometimes. Let's do some questions, she said, and flicked to the Q&A tab. What's your go-to comfort show? Would you ever move to LA? How do you stay confident on bad days? Her tongue wrapped around the stock answers, polished by repetition. Fleabag definitely not, and lots of therapy. The viewer count climbed to 28,000. Her cheeks ached from smiling. She was halfway through a carefully vague story about her most embarrassing brand meeting, when a new comment slid into view, the letters so ordinary they might have been grocery list items. Ever watching? Don't forget to lock the balcony door tonight. X. Mara's breath caught mid-sentence. For a heartbeat, she did not know if the words had come out of her mouth, or if they were still trapped in her skull. The chat around the comment glittered with unrelated jokes and heart emojis, oblivious. Her heart hammered against her ribs. Balcony door. She never ever mentioned the balcony. She filmed facing away from it, and had chosen this angle specifically so no one could see the sliding glass, or the precarious metal railing 3 floors above the narrow alley. The only hint of it in any of her content was a wash of daylight on her left side during morning shoots. Mara? You okay? Someone wrote. Sorry, she said quickly, swallowing. Just a brain glitch. You know when you can hear your neighbor's telly through the wall and you're like, should I be concerned? Anyway. Her voice sounded thin in her own ears. Do not look at the balcony, she told herself. Do not give them the reaction. If it's them, that's what they want. She kept her gaze pinned to the lens, ignoring the dark rectangle at the edge of her peripheral vision where the glass doors loomed. The comment had vanished, shoved up and out of sight by hundreds of others. She flicked through menus with shaky fingers until she found the user list, scrolling for the handle. Ever Watching was gone. She finished the stream 30 minutes earlier than planned, blaming a killer headache that her audience responded to with sympathetic messages and migraine tips. When the red live icon winked out and the viewer count dropped to 0, the silence in the room rushed in like water. Mara stood, the room tilting for a second, and crossed to the balcony door. The curtains hung still, undisturbed. Beyond them, the city's glow seeped through faint gaps, gnawing at the edges of the fabric. She pressed her fingertips to the cool glass, feeling stupid and dramatic, like a final girl in a film before the jump scare. The latch was down. Locked. Her phone buzzed on the coffee table. A DM preview flashed across the screen. Unknown, you looked scared at the end. It doesn't suit you. Another buzz. A second message from the same account. Unknown, don't worry. I'll keep an eye on things when you forget. Mara stared at the screen until the words blurred. Outside, a bus rolled past, washing the ceiling with a brief sweep of red. Somewhere in the building a door slammed, footsteps echoing along the corridor. She told herself that was all it was. A stranger with Wi-Fi and too much time. But when she went to bed an hour later, she jammed a chair under the balcony handle and dragged her chest of drawers in front of the flat door, muscles straining, breath coming in harsh little bursts. Her followers would have laughed to see her, their confident, put-together Mara in an old uni t-shirt, barefoot and sweating on the floor of her own hallway. In the darkness, phone face down on the nightstand, the little red notification icon kept pulsing behind her eyelids like a heartbeat she could no longer control.
वीडियोस बनाने हैं फिल्मोरा है ना।